Hi, welcome back to my channel. We're going to talk about the male gaze, but also why I really don't like the male gaze and how I think that cinema's got a long way to go. So firstly, Laura Mulvey is a feminist film theorist. Mulvey states that the audience are forced to objectify women in a sexual way through seeing the film or the TV show through a male's perspective. She also observed that men in films are often the protagonist. They drive the narrative forward, they're strong, independent, really active participants in the narrative, whereas women are really passive and often don't have main leading roles. We could argue that things are getting better. I think film especially is getting better, and TV, in terms of female representation, but I still feel like I see the male gaze every single time I watch TV or film, well, most of the time. Fast and the Furious is like one of my most hated franchises. I think it's just a bit crap, but I also hate the representation of women and how the male gaze is used all the way through those. Also, pretty much anything with Margot Robbie. Yeah, and Megan Fox. They're just used because they're beautiful. I'm hoping it's not always going to be the case, that they'll play some. Well, I know like Margot Robbie has played I, Tonya, which is obviously not an over-sexualised film at all, but then we have Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn was first in the first Suicide Squad film, which was directed by a white heterosexual man. Harley Quinn was wearing tiny shorts, ripped clothing, childlike kind of pigtails, and let's think about it. This was filmed and directed by men for men. When you first see Harley Quinn, she's in a cage. She's like a caged animal, someone to look at, someone to observe. And she's almost acting like a pole dancer or some kind of circus performer, and all the men come and see her and just watch her because she's hypnotising. It feels like we shouldn't be watching it as well. It's quite voyeuristic, which is a term that is from voyeurism, which is when you're watching something you feel like you shouldn't be watching. CCTV footage and intimate scenes in films where you feel like you just shouldn't see the things you're seeing. So there's a shot when Harley Quinn's getting dressed into her kind of like Harley Quinn clothes, and the camera pans from her feet up to her face, and it just lingers over her bare belly for way too long. It's a bit like the Megan Fox scene in Transformers, where it's like, and she even looks around because everybody's watching her. So there's nothing more male gaze than that. On the other hand, Birds of Prey was directed by a woman, still had the same character in it, but changed ever so slightly. She is still like a completely reckless character. She's really seductive still, ambitious, but there's less of a need to please those male viewers in the same way. And also she's not wearing a dog collar, which, yeah, ditch the dog collar. When you watch Birds of Prey, you'll see that the camera does actually look the woman up and down, does look Harley Quinn up and down, which usually I kind of see as a male gaze thing. You know, when a woman walks into a room, the kind of stereotype of the guy looking a woman up and down. So the camera puts us in that perspective. But she isn't sexualized. She's fully like dressing up in like her disguise, I guess, in this one. And then when we do see her, she is wearing much more kind of skimpy clothing, but it's so different. The fact is, this is from a comic. There is going to be a certain costume that people expect her to be wearing, but it's how we show that and how we portray that to the audience that is so different from the two different texts. So I guess Harley Quinn's one example of how you could show the same character in two different ways, one through the male gaze and one through another gaze. There's an argument for the female gaze, and I'll probably do that in a different video. I think film is coming on a little bit, but advertising is still really stuck in the past in terms of gender representation, especially the male gaze and female representation. So this is the advert that I show my students when I really want them to see the male gaze in full effect in advertising. The camera basically shows women as like almost disembodied, like cut up parts. So it might show like a woman's shoulder, but you can't see her face. Or it will show a woman's legs and you once again can't see her face, or her feet, and just bits of body, which totally dehumanizes the woman. It's like she's faceless, she just doesn't matter. She's just there to look good, look how good her legs look. I think this makes it really harmful for audiences, well, any audience who isn't a heterosexual man anyway. And it worries me that people will watch this and think to date someone like Kit Harington, you're gonna have to look like her. But also that your personality and who you are isn't important either. That's a problem. The male gaze also supports the idea that men are better than women, essentially, and women are weaker and more passive. The male gaze, in a way, is kind of just toxic, subliminal messages to all the audience saying this is how we look at women, and even if you're a woman, you need to look at them like this too. And it's unrealistic and unfair.